this video, we'll be discussing the actions that are regarded as non-compliance by Labor Relations Act, the penalties of non-compliance, the way in which a business can comply with Labor Relations Act, and we'll be talking again about the rights of the employer in terms of Labor Relations Act and the rights of the employees in terms of Labor Relations Act. Now, under the actions that are regarded as non-compliance by Labor Relations Act, we got 6 points. Now, the first point that we are going to talk about, it is to dismiss an employee unfairly. That is regarded as non-compliance. Being an employer, deciding to dismiss, one is late, you are fired. Therefore, that action, it is regarded as non-compliance. The second point, when you are preventing employees from forming or joining the trade union, therefore you are regarded as you are doing a non-compliance. Non-compliance to Labor Relations Act. Then the third point, when you refuse to provide trade union representatives.
You can't go.
For your employees, therefore you'll be regarded as one has conducted a wrongful act, therefore you refuse that employee to be represented by a union, therefore you are conducting a non-compliance. The fourth point, when you are preventing the employee to participate on the legal strikes, therefore you are conducting a non-compliance. As long as that strike, it is legal. The fifth point, dismissing employee who participated in a legal strike.
Wow!
The employee was involved there, protesting, doing what? When you dismiss that, therefore you are conducting a non-compliance. Our last point, when you are forcing the employee to give up the trade union membership that they've chose for themselves, therefore you are conducting a non-compliance. One will decide whether I want to be a SATU, one will decide whether I want to be a TOSA, forcing them to give up their trade union, therefore you are conducting a non-compliance. Now we'll be talking about the penalties, the consequences for non-complying with Labor Relations Act. Therefore, we'll be discussing 5 points. The first point, the business that do not comply with Labor Relations may receive a non-compliance order from court. They are going to receive a non-compliance order. That will be the first punishment. The second, the business who neglect to comply with Labor Relations Act may receive large fines if they fail to meet the agreements or to reach those agreements that they were expected to do. The third point, the business may be forced to enter into dispute resolution process. They'll be forced to sit down, to come up to a collective bargaining where people, they sit down, they negotiate. They'll be forced to do that. Fourth point, the business license may be revoked, may be terminated, may be cancelled.
Because my license has been revoked again.
If you did not comply with Labor Relations Act. Then our last point, the business that fails to comply with Labor Relations Act may incur financial cost for dealing with that non-compliance. For example, you've terminated one service unfairly, therefore you're going to compensate, supposed to pay that individual for terminating that service of that employee. Now we'll be discussing the point, the ways in which the business they can comply. What is expected by law for the business to comply with Labor Relations Act? We got 6 points. The first point, the business is supposed to place a summary. When one enter into a business, there must be a summary that is visible to everyone. See what is expected. When they enter, it should be visible to every employee when they enter, so that everyone can see this is the law of Labor Relations Act. The second point, the employee must be allowed to form trade union and participate in union activities.
I'll allow it.
They must be allowed to do that. The third point, the establishment of workplace forum must be supported by the employers. Now, workplace forum, it is expected by law, depending on the number of workers that you have as an employer. If you've got 60 workers, they are doing different categories. of work. So now each and every category of work, you need to have a representative. For example, in a school environment, we've got the people who are making copies, we've got the people who are gatekeepers, we've got the people who are cleaning. In every category, there must be a representative so that when people are seated down, one can voice out what is happening in cleaning department. We don't have cleaning material. People must be able to voice out their concerns there. Then the fourth point, any agreement made during collective bargaining should be followed. You cannot ignore that. If you ignore that, therefore you are doing non-compliance. The fifth point, fairness should be promoted and employees should not be treated unfairly. Illegal conduct cannot be done to a worker in a work environment.
Fair's fair.
Fair's fair.
People must be treated fairly. You are not supposed to discriminate. It doesn't matter based on what. It could be based on gender because one, or based on sexual preference because one is a gay, therefore you discriminate that person. That is not allowed. And our last point, the employers, they need to disclose all the relevant information to trade union representatives.
Full disclosure?
So that if they take a decision, they take it based on all the facts. That's how the basis they should comply with Labor Relation Act. Now we are going to talk about the rights of the employers and the employees. But firstly, we are going to talk about the right of the employer. We've got 5 points in terms of the right of the employer. The first point, the employer has a right to conduct a lockout. A lockout, remember guys, we've talked about it. The employer has a right to lock the premises so that they prevent their premises not to be vandalized by the heated employees. Then the second point, the employer has a right to form an employer's organization. The employer's organization, remember, is the union of the employer. Now the third point, the employer has a right to dismiss the employee who engage on an illegal strike.
Good.
Now, the illegal strike, it is the strike that is not approved by trade union. That strike, it is an illegal strike. So you're not supposed, as an employee, you're not supposed to engage on that strike. Then the fourth point, the employer has a right to form a bargaining council and to conduct a collective bargaining. They've got a right to do that. Our last point, the employer has a right not to pay or remunerate one who participated on a legal strike. So it means if you did not work, you were engaged in that strike, therefore the employer won't pay you for that. They've got the right not to pay you. Now we'll be talking about the rights of the employees in terms of Labor Relation Act. An employee has a right to join the trade union of her choice, his choice. If one decides to join SATU, if one decides to join NAPTASU, that's supposed to be the right of the employee. The second point, an employee has a right to establish a workplace forum where the business has more than 100 employees. Therefore, by law, employers have a right to form workplace forum. Our third point, an employer has a right to request a trade union representative if they've conducted, maybe they are engaged on a case, there is some misunderstanding between the employer and the employee. Therefore, an employee has a right to find a trade union representative so that he or she will be represented on that issue.
Representation matters.
And our fourth point, the employee has a right to embark or to conduct a legal strike as a remedy on that grievance, on that misunderstanding that they have between the employer. They've got the right to engage on a legal strike. Now, when we say an employee has a right to embark on a legal strike, it is the strike that is approved by trade union. But if an employee is going to engage on a illegal strike, therefore it will depend on the employer what consequences you want to give. The other point, the trade union representatives, they may take a reasonable time off with pay to attend trade union duties. The other point, they've got the right to refer and resolve workplace dispute to CCMA, Commission for Counsel Mediation and Arbitration. If as a business they fail to resolve that issue, they've got a right to refer it to CCMA. If CCMA fail to resolve that issue, CCMA has a right to refer to take that case to Labor Appeal Court. That will be the last court. This is the end of the lesson, so please subscribe to our channel. Thank you.